We're exchanging some information where there are some statutes that prevent the exchange of information that we'd like to have. We're still kind of working around that, staying within maybe the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, but we're allowing that information. So if a school official knows that there might be something brewing, they'll now pass that information to the police department. And then if we have information over the weekend that maybe there was some gang conflict or some violence involving the CPS students, we can then get that information into the principal so there can be counseling and we can take a proactive approach to try and prevent this. The key, though, is teaching conflict resolution and anger management to these kids. And I know CPS is committed to do that. We're working very, very close with the schools. We're also reaching out for the community to make sure that we give our kids safe passage to and from school. And that's not just a police function. We feel it's much better to have volunteers, community residents standing side by side our police officers so that the children see the cooperation and collaboration between community and police to really send the message that we're here for you. We want you to go to school. We all know that education is the key, and these kids have to feel safe in their schools. But it's a challenge. You know, some of the schools, they do have conflicting or gang conflicts inside the school. And unfortunately, some of our young men and women do not have the emotional stability and maturity yet to be able to handle a conference rather than throwing a punch or sometimes picking up a gun. So there's work to be done from many different angles, but we're working very well with the Chicago Public Schools right now. We do believe that the exchange of information allows us to be much more proactive and to put the police officers where they need to be to ensure the safety of our young men and women.
Right, it's really a challenge because there's no easy solution. One superintendent or one state's attorney can clean up everything, and you're absolutely right. It takes cooperation of families, of the communities, of business leaders, and everyone that's involved. And recently you were quoted in the newspaper talking about this code of silence when it comes to kids out there who or people out there on the street who may witness a crime. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, it literally is killing us, and I don't mean to say that lightly. We have crime after crime after crime where kids don't come forward. A young boy was shot last night. He's in the hospital. Detectives respond. What can you tell us? He claims he didn't see anything. He has no idea who shot him. Absolutely, totally uncooperative in this system. So what's going to happen? More than likely, he's going to try and extract street justice down the road. We had a horrible incident out in front of St. Sabina Church, where a young boy was killed after playing, he was shot up after playing basketball. A few days earlier, he had been arrested for shooting at some other folks. So it's this circle of violence that we see, and for whatever reason, children and witnesses are not willing to come forward and say, you know, I know my friend, he's got a gun, he's going to do something bad. You know, I'd rather him go to jail than to be killed or to kill someone else. So we're trying to attack that from many different angles. We hold numerous seminars, we work with our CAPS program. We're out there talking to the kids in the schools, but there is this code of silence. And I was very encouraged, though, at the Finger High School incident. We had, I believe, 6 people identify this one young man. And after we charged him, people started coming forward and say he didn't do it. And working with your office and our detectives, we recognized that the wrong person was charged, so we released him. And then people started coming forward and going into grand jury. You know, now we have the right person charged. I was very pleased that people came forward because a young man had been wrongly accused, and we were able to rectify that. It's unfortunate, though, that they waited so long to do that. If that information would have come out right away, I think we could have brought the real offenders to justice much sooner.
Absolutely, and I think it's important that the witnesses out there, I understand the concerns, safety issues and that sort of thing, and living in an area that is controlled by one certain gang. But in all, you know, when we look at the total picture, it's so important to have people come forward to assist us in law enforcement in order to get the right person charged, in order to have some justice for the families whose, you know, child or children have been victimized. So I think that's really important. We have seen, obviously, the increase in the use of guns here, particularly in the city of Chicago. But we've also seen that many of the gun laws are on the verge of possibly being overturned. And we had a recent Illinois Supreme Court case recently about what is considered a case in regards to concealed weapons. And can you tell us a little more about where the police department is in regards to the gun violence and perhaps some of the issues that we're facing?
Well, we recover more weapons than New York and Los Angeles combined. we average probably around 13,000 weapons a year recovered, and New York and LA are hovering around the 6,000 mark. So there is just a tremendous number of weapons on the streets of Chicago. We average a recovery of more than 24 a day, more than 1 an hour recovering. We have around 42 gun-related incidents a day. So we're challenged by that, but we're very optimistic in terms of the new law that you pushed through, and hopefully will be signed into the law soon, where if a gang member has a loaded weapon, he will not get probation. Every officer I've talked to thanks you for pushing that forward, because Officer Alex Valadez would be here today if that law had been in place, and I really thank you for that, because that can make an impact. We're taking people with guns who are members of gangs off the street, so we're real excited about that. With this new Supreme Court, taking on the Chicago gun ordinance, I'm very fearful about that. And you can make the argument like, well, there's still a lot of guns in Chicago. My fear is there's going to be an immediate reaction if they overturn our gun ordinance. People are going to go out and buy many, 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 many weapons. And what's going to happen? Legally purchased weapons are going to be stolen, and then they're going to get in the hands of the criminals, and that's going to be a problem. We also will have people with weapons in their house that may have not have been there before. So now when there's a domestic situation and emotions are running high, now there's a weapon inside the house. When our officers go, they have to be prepared to know, like, okay, we have a situation where emotions are running high, and now there may or may not be a gun in the house. And I think it's just going to put much more pressure on our officers, knowing that every time they go to this type of situation, they have to assume that there could be a weapon in their home. So I don't know how it's all going to play out. I'm very concerned about that, because I think it will put a lot more guns on the street, in the city, and many of the guns are stolen. So I am fearful that we're going to have a problem where there's just more guns on the street, and it's certainly going to be a challenge for us.
Absolutely, because what I have seen, and obviously you have seen in your work, is that many times these guns that are used repeatedly in shootings and crimes are stolen guns, and they may have been purchased legitimately by someone. However, they find their way on the street, and so that's why I believe it's important that we focus on trying to get to those people who are putting those guns on the street as well. The gang situation in Chicago has always been obviously something that we have a lot of gangs as opposed to some of the other big cities.
Right.
Have you seen, well, we have seen in our office, the sophistication of the gangs, particularly here, when it comes to things, the drug trade is one thing, but we have seen, and I'd like you to comment on the sophistication of the gangs going into things like mortgage fraud. They're branching out into other businesses, so to
Right.
speak. Have you guys seen that as well when it comes to some of the crimes that we've been investigating?
We have seen that, and I think maybe some of the gangs are getting a little smarter, especially like in the money laundering aspects. They make a great deal of money, but then how are they going to clean that up? So we actually have seen mortgage fraud cases coming along where it's gang members going out, using some of the money from their drug sales and going out and purchasing homes and then flipping them. So it is a level of sophistication that we've seen. We've also seen where there's smaller gangs that really don't lend themselves to some of the more traditional techniques that we've used. You may only be going after a group of 5 or 6 people. They may be a faction of a larger gang, just as violent, just as much of a threat to society, but when you go after them, you're only going after maybe 5 people, and it's gotten us away from the more criminal enterprise type investigations where maybe you try and take 30, 40, 50 people and round them up. So we've had to adjust our strategies a little bit and recognize that we're going to have a harder time. We're not going to take out that huge gang, but we'll take out the smaller factions. But the one good news, since they're getting into other criminal aspects, we have different tools and different statutes to use to go after them. But the gang members are getting smarter. Their communications are stronger. They recognize some of the tools we have to focus on their communications, and it's a game that we play every day, and some days we win and some days they're ahead of us.